Greetings, namaste, namaskara. I'm really excited to co-explore what I call the fascinating intersection between the brain, mind, and the Indian classical raga. In the Academy of Geeks and Geekery, if you will, this is called neuroaesthetics. Neuroaesthetics of music at large looks at this interplay between what is played or sung. It looks at what is actually heard by the audience and what is eventually perceived and what is eventually cognized. So it looks at the perception pipeline, if you will, with both the producer of the music and the consumer of the music and the via medium, the intersubjective space, as they call it. So in many ways, neuroaesthetics is looking at the principles that govern how music is finally perceived. So maybe there are universals to how the Indian classical raga is perceived. It may not be so different from, let's say, how K-pop is perceived. It may not be so significantly different for the brain, for the mind, from how a symphonic piece of music is eventually perceived. So, since I am a cognitive neuroscientist, I love to know my audience. Just a quick show of hands. How many Tanseins are in the audience? People who have learned Indian classical music? Nice. How many Kanseins? People who hear and consume Indian classical music? Or are we all into K-pop and demon hunters and Gamani Gamani Golden and all that? All right, good. It's good. That's a good mix. So, playing devil's advocate, why should we be even bothered about this? You may ask, right? Isn't the whole world of neuroaesthetics the pursuit for people who have a lot of luxury? If you think about it, we are at a very interesting and beautiful juncture in humanities research. From the time of Aristotle and Plato, where the questions of aesthetics were bothered about what is beauty in the eyes of the beholder, or is beauty an innate thing in an object that has to be universally and equally perceived. These were very, very, very seminal aesthetic questions. But now, the philosophical armchair, so to speak, has moved from the minds and alleys of these philosophers like Aristotle and Plato to you and me. We're now asking, is there anything universal? Is there anything common? Is there a common denominator between how I perceive music, between how she perceives music, somebody who has learned Indian classical music, somebody who has never heard Indian classical music? Does the raga act on their minds and their brains and their bodies in the same way as it would to a Carnatic musician sitting in Mylapore? Will raga Shanmukha Priya, if you will that act in the same way on the minds and brains of a guy who's sitting in Antarctica, as it will in the alleys of Chennai, if you will? So these are the new questions of neuroaesthetics, and this is going to grow into $1 million industry at the very least if we are able to crack the raga code. Because for once, if you're able to fully understand and comprehend how the raga is perceived, and if you're able to use Indian classical music in the clinic, personalized medicine becomes possible. You're able to customize music for moods, for various psychiatric interventions, like with the specificity of a drug, so to speak. So music becomes an ally for cognitive enhancement in education, in therapy, in the clinic. Music also makes it possible to be an ally in how we understand the workings of the brain today. So like love, I'm sure you'll all agree that music is a many-splendored thing. So with that preface, let me move on to some questions. How many of you believe that the Indian raga which is the crowning glory of Indian classical music. How many of you believe that it was composed from the times of the Natya Shastra to the Sangeeta Ratnakara and the contemporary explorations of music? How many of you believe that that was composed with one end point or one emotion, one bhava, one raga, one emotion, one bhava, one rasa? Yes? Your responses won't be held against you in court. I promise you that. Yes? No? Who are all the no's? Good. Okay. So pat yourself on the back. None of you are allies to the one raga, one rasa, one bhava blind spot that exists in Indian classical music today. So if I were to say that I need to compose a song that's happy, I need to choose a happy raga, right? Yeah? Can I choose a sad raga and still make it happy? No? No, okay. So if you need to make a happy song, you need to choose a happy raga, and a happy raga should be full of happy swaras. Yeah? Can sad swaras make happy ragas? No. Logical, linear, yeah. Makes sense. Now, what if I were to tell you that the world of ragas is not the sum total of the swaras that are encompassing a raga? What if I were to tell you that what you see can change the way of how you perceive the raga? That there is a multi-sensory juxtaposition that can change and transform the way you perceive raga. So for this, I'm going to launch into a very small illustration. Humor me. I'm going to sing a short melody. Just hear it, perceive it, and then I'll show a short video, and then we can move on with the illustration. So close your eyes. Sa 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 ni sa re sa. Sa 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 ni sa re sa. Sa re ni sa da ni pa da ma pa ma re re ga re sa. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga re ni re sa. Sa 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 ni sa re sa. Sa 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 ni sa re sa. Ni sa re re sa ni sa re re sa ni sa re sa. Ni sa re re sa ni sa re re sa ni sa re sa. You may open your eyes. How did that feel? What are some labels you would give this if I were to ask you? Transcendental? Yeah? Happy? Not very happy, right? Transcendental, bhakti as they call it, right? Somewhat plaintive, pathos. Did anybody feel sad? I always loved the people who felt nothing also. How many of you felt nothing? Great. I love my negative controls in experimental design, so great. How many of you were like, quite don't know what to do with it? Good. Okay, so everybody felt something. Awesome. Now, next slide, please. Please watch this video. चाहे कोई मुझे जंगली कहे, कहने तो जी कहता रहे, हम क्या के तूफानों में गिरे हैं, हम क्या करें? चाहे कोई मुझे जंगली कहे, कहने तो जी कहता रहे, हम क्या के तूफानों में गिरे हैं, हम क्या करें? Now, what if I were to tell you that the melody you just heard from my mouth is exactly what is being mouthed by Mr. Shami Kapoor on stage, and that melody seems to be causing this highly romantic seeming, epileptic seeming, happy seizure in his brain. Sounds unbelievable? Let me decode that for you. चाहे कोई मुझे जंगली कहे, सा 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 नी सा नी सा रे सा. प्यार के तूफानों से घिरे हैं, हम क्या करें. Sari re ni sa sa da ni ni pa da da ma pa ma ga re ga ga re sa. Yet, when placed in the context of a video with Shami Kapoor and his grand presence and him giving you a direct sense of what he wants to convey, with his body shaking and with Saira Banu looking so beautiful, romance is definitely directly suggested. Did anybody have any ambiguity about what this song was all about? No, it was about romance, it was about Shringara. How many of you actually heard the lyrics? Good. How many of you actually bothered about, maybe this is Raga Todi and... yeah? No. Right? So when you have vision juxtaposition with audition and music, vision dominates. That's simply because a good amount of the brain, the visual cortex, is a huge part of your brain, and when word and rhythm and a visual cue is placed alongside music, they tend to dominate your perception away from which raga, which swara, and which gamaka, and all of that. And now why is that important? Because, can you move back a slide? Because perception is a battle. It's a battle that's shaped by culture and cognition together. And it's a battle that's being unraveled. So your perception lives and breathes in a space which is dominated by multiple senses. And what you finally see and hear is the ultimate outcome of this battle that's happening out there in your brain. Now, let me ask you this. How many of you heard the Kantara song in this clip? Well, if everything was ragas and swaras, you should have heard the Kantara song Varaha Rupam in it, isn't it? But it didn't. It didn't evoke those things because the global perceptive parts of your brain are loaded elsewhere. And hence, there is, when Shami Kapoor gives you that direct, powerful emotional mix of his body gyrating to the rhythm of that piece, you quite don't need to think of whether this is raga todi and if it's the same swaras that populate the Carnatic scale todi and if it's what is similar, if it's sounding similar to the Kantara song. So let me break that up for you a little bit. चाहे कोई मुझे जंगली कहे, कहने दो जी कहता रहे, हम प्यार के तूफानों से घिरे हैं, हम क्या करें, सरिगा मा पदनी सरिगा, ना 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 हम प्यार के तूफानों से घिरे हैं, हम क्या करें. Right? So, the essential and sufficient qualities of raga perception are not determinants in its outcome, so to speak. So, next slide, please. So, why is it like this? Why are we tuned like this? Those are fantastic questions to ask, no? Because out there in the jungle, when you had to survive, when you were hunters and gatherers, what was the deal? The deal was you had to quickly respond to stimuli, right? Let me give you an example. The fact that you're all here, it's because your ancestors were sharp enough to not sit and ponder when a tiger is nearby. You're swarmed by a bunch of bees around you. Do you stand and think, love the way the 440 hertz blends into the 90 hertz, and then suddenly you have an interval, semitonal intervallic shift, a tonal modulation to like 300 hertz. So your cognition has always been fast acting. The trade-off is always speed versus precision. It's not always important to be precise It's important to be accurate enough so that you can run for your life. So now you may ask, are we Sheldons looking at music, or are we Calvins looking at music? And I'm sure that to operate with music, one needs to be a Calvin. One needs to bring his autobiographical memories, which will get to meaning quicker and faster. Not that there is not a more ponderous, long-acting sense of how we process music, but we'll get to that in a minute. Next. So, I think Hans Andersen said this, when words fail, music speaks, right? Because music, in you, in us, in me, we all share a shared ancestry of emotions. Music is a passport to certain universal human emotions, which sometimes may not be verbalized. We may not be able to verbalize this. But to switch that on itself, when you hear music with lyric, that tends to dominate your perception. So I close with this statement that the music really, think about it, music really is not what is played out, but you are an active agent who's actually in the musical process. You're just not a consumer. So the music is actually being played in. So what you hear in your ear is perhaps not so important as what you hear in here. Thank you.